4 a.m. The silence over Smolensk shattered. A coordinated series of explosions ripped through the nuclear power plant. 1 a.m. The 368-mile journey began in darkness, launched from a concealed airbase near Chernobyl. This was not a random act of war. This was Ukraine's calculated response to Russia's attacks on its own power grid. The attack was a complex, coordinated operation, a masterpiece of modern warfare. It involved a swarm of 8 AN-196 Leotik long-range drones, 2 as decoys, 6 as the main strike force. Critically, these troops were supported by a small team of partisans operating deep inside Russian territory. The AN-196 Ludi itself is a testament to wartime innovation. It's a low-cost, domestically produced drone, integrating advanced American AI for navigation and relying on Starlink for jam-proof communication, a game-changer in defense technology. This gives it the ability to strike deep inside Russia with precision. Their target was not the reactor, but its critical vulnerability. The 500-foot-tall cooling tower for Unit 3. A fatal flaw in Soviet-era design, a vital piece of the nuclear plant's defense. It was left completely exposed with no protective dome. And while Russia's prized S-400 defense system stood guard, the entire plan was designed to exploit their weaknesses. They knew that heavy snowfall, combined with a small partisan-created thermal anomaly, would effectively blind the billion-dollar radar system. At the critical moment, Russia believed the harsh winter was its greatest ally. The Ukrainian army was about to prove it could be turned against them. They had forged their ultimate weapon. At 1 in the morning, the operation commenced. A 368-mile penetration launched from a black site airbase swallowed by the Chernobyl night. 8 AN-196 Leotik drones climbed silently into the sky, leveling off at a dangerously low 100 feet, flying below the radar horizon. The Earth's curvature became their primary shield. Each of these modern weapons carried a 165-pound incendiary warhead, designed to burn at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This was a dynamic hunt, guided by an American-developed AI that processed data in real time. The data flowed through an unjammable Starlink connection, but their most critical data stream came from the ground. 3 partisans hidden deep in the Desna forest. They were feeding the swarm the precise, real-time location of Russia's mobile Pantsir air defense units, the last line of defense for the Smolensk plant. But physics is a harsh mistress. A brutal 20-mile-per-hour crosswind began pushing the entire swarm off course. The deviation was just 3.6 degrees. Over hundreds of miles, it was a mission-killing error. For a lesser system, it would have been over. For the Ludi's AI, it was just another variable in the equation. It made thousands of micro-adjustments per second. The swarm remained locked on a perfect trajectory. Back in a Kiev control room, the operator watched the telemetry stream, a crucial piece of war analysis. His knuckles were white. The system was performing flawlessly. Then, as the swarm entered the final 50-mile stretch, a single icon on his screen flashed from green to red. The data feed from Drone 7, one of the primary killers, had just vanished, 72 seconds from the target zone. One of his weapons was flying blind. 4 a.m. As the swarm crossed the 50-mile threshold, the entire electronic landscape erupted. The S-400's 92 N6E gravestone radar, a system powerful enough to track 300 targets simultaneously, lit them up inside the Russian command post. The system processed the threat with the cold, brutal efficiency of a high-frequency trading algorithm. It assigned a target. It calculated an intercept. It gave its human operators a single green light. The response from the soldiers was instantaneous. A 40 N6 missile roared into the sky, launched with a roar, tearing a streak of white fire through the night. Seconds later, a silent, expanding fireball appeared on the screen as the missile found its mark. The first drone was gone. In the command post, there was a momentary sigh of relief. A textbook kill. But it was a kill they were meant to get. The destroyed drone was Decoy 1. As its shattered pieces rained down, the remaining 7 drones executed their programmed response. And the real attack had only just begun. They did not scatter. Instead, a series of erratic, zigzagging maneuvers began. The heavy snow became a three-dimensional curtain for their modern warfare tactics. And here, the billion-dollar defense systems faltered. The S-400, designed for high-altitude, high-speed jets. It was never meant for a slow, intelligent swarm of drones weaving through a blizzard. On the Pantsir operator's screen, the targeting icons flashed. Erratic, unstable. The system was losing its lock on the incoming weapons. And on the ground, the final layer of Russian defense was completely oblivious. In a watchtower overlooking the Smolensk facility, the troops were blind. A Russian guard felt the bite of the cold. He lit a cigarette, the small flame a brief spark in the oppressive dark. He stared out into the blackness. His eyes saw only falling snow. He was completely unaware. 7 silent killers were maneuvering just below his line of sight, closing in on the heart of Russia's power grid. 400 hours. The question: why was the S-400, a marvel of defense technology, failing? Struggling to lock onto a 550-pound drone? The answer wasn't a high-tech coating. It was a pioneering Ukrainian tactic, a new chapter in this global conflict. A tactic that military analysts now call snowjam. The drones broadcasted low-frequency interference, not at the radar, but into the snow itself. The heavy, wet snowflakes became millions of tiny reflectors, scattering the radar waves into a chaotic, unreadable mess. This is electronic warfare, redefined. The digital equivalent of throwing a fistful of sand in your opponent's eyes. You don't block their vision, you overload it. Blinded and furious, Russian commanders unleashed their own electronic sledgehammer. The Krasuka 4 jammer from 186 miles away. It pumped out a tidal wave of energy. A brute force attack designed to fry the radio controls of any drone in the hemisphere. Any other drone system would have fallen from the sky, severed from its pilot. But against the Lyuti, the Krasuka's raw power was useless. A shocking piece of military news for the command. It was like trying to jam a radio signal with a megaphone. You're shouting in the wrong language. These advanced drones weren't listening to radio commands. They were connected directly to the Starlink satellite network, and just as the jamming wave hit, the partisans played their final card. They detonated a small device, not on a road, but at a secondary radar station. Its connection to the main grid was instantly severed. The physical explosion created the perfect cover for their electronic one. They activated a ground-based beacon, providing a pinpoint-accurate navigation update directly to the swarm. The AI didn't need GPS anymore. It now had a lighthouse guiding it home. On paper, the S-400 should have won this war. Its technical specs promised an 80% kill rate. But this wasn't a laboratory test. It was a real-world fight, a brutal lesson in modern weapons. Here, Ukraine turned Russia's greatest assets, its vast, unforgiving winter landscape and its porous border, into catastrophic weaknesses for their national defense. 16 hours. The decoy's explosion had served its purpose, but it created a new, unexpected problem. The wind, which had been a nuisance, now became a saboteur. It caught the thick, oily smoke from the destroyed drone and blew it directly into the path of the main swarm. The drone's optical sensors, suddenly blinded, triggered an immediate course correction. 2 of them veered off path. In that moment of chaos, the Russian army commander played his final electronic card. He gave the order for a full-power, sector-wide Krasuka 4 barrage. For 30 agonizing seconds, every screen in the Kyiv control room went blank. The Starlink connection, the video feeds, the telemetry, all of it was drowned in a sea of Russian electronic warfare. The drones were on their own, but this is the exact scenario the system was built for. This is where the American-made AI, the future of the Air Force, trained on 10,000 simulated flights, took complete command. It was no longer just following a map, it was thinking, a true war analysis in real time. It's the difference between a simple GPS and the self-driving AI in a Waymo vehicle. It instantly disregarded the now useless GPS data. It adapted. The AI locked on, a partisan ground beacon. The attack run for the entire swarm of drones was replotted in less than 1 second. The signal flared back to life in Kiev, just in time for the operator to witness the final desperate Russian response. His electronic hammer had failed. The commander unleashed the wolves, 2 Su-35 fighters, the apex predators of the Russian Air Force. They were screaming towards the target zone at Mach 2. This should have been the end of this military engagement, a multi-million-dollar fighter jet against a cheap drone. This is not a fair fight in modern warfare. But the drones had one last trick. They dropped altitude, diving into the 20-foot deep channel of the Desna River. The riverbanks provided a perfect natural shield, a blind spot in the Su-35's powerful look-down radar, a fatal flaw in their defense systems. The commander stared at a screen that told him nothing. His billion-dollar shield had failed. His electronic hammer had missed. And now, somewhere in the blizzard, ghosts were closing in on his most valuable asset. The troops on the ground were blind. The target, 0 to 4. 1647 hours. Bursting from the river's cover, the 4 remaining drones began their final terminal attack run. 43 seconds to impact. Through the lead drone's camera, the target filled the screen. The Smolensk cooling tower. These were truly modern weapons. A 500-foot monument to Soviet neglect. The operator in Kiev could see the cracks in the aging concrete, the exposed rebar. But most importantly, he saw the fatal flaw, the one the IAEA had warned about for years. A key element of any war analysis, unlike modern Western designs, it had no reinforced containment dome. It was a giant, fragile concrete eggshell, and it was waiting to be cracked. On the ground, one last Army panzer crew, ignoring the ghost signals on their radar, used pure optical sights. A lock. A final missile tore through the blizzard. Drone 6 vanished in a violent blast that shook the other drones in the air. But it was too little, too late. The 3 remaining killers didn't even flinch. They just adjusted formation and accelerated. In Kiev, the operator held his breath. His own heart pounded in his ears. The sweat felt like ice on his skin. Below, the chaos of warfare reigned. The S-400 was screaming about phantom targets miles away, while Russian soldiers ran in confusion, not knowing if the threat was real or another electronic ghost. The final countdown began. 12 seconds. The drones adjusted their angle of attack, turning gravity into a weapon. 8 seconds. The concrete tower filled the entire screen. 3 seconds. The operator saw the individual cracks in the wall rush up to meet him. 1647 hours. The 3 remaining AN-196 Liutai drones executed their terminal dive. Their INS GPS guidance systems locked onto precise WGS-84 coordinates, making final minute adjustments. This was the pinnacle of current defense technology. This wasn't a brute force attack. It was industrial neurosurgery. The first 165-pound incendiary warhead slammed into the concrete wall of the cooling tower, precisely 3 feet from the central axis of the main water ventilation shaft. 2 more followed in less than 1 second, hitting different structural points on the same trajectory. The mission's true genius was now revealed, a stunning military update. The fuse on each warhead was set with a 0.8-second delay. This was the critical detail, ensuring the warheads didn't just explode on the tower, but punched through the 2-foot-thick concrete wall before detonating inside. The result was a brutal physics lesson. The blast wave, with a pressure of over 10 psi, was trapped with nowhere to go. It slammed against the interior concrete walls, rebounding, amplifying its own destructive force. A new chapter in this global conflict. It turned the 500-foot tower into a giant sealed pressure cooker. The primary water pipes, the arteries of the cooling system, were not just ruptured, they were vaporized. Deprived of its cooling liquid, the massive turbine for Unit 3 began to die. Its internal temperature spiked to over 1,000 degrees, 200 degrees Fahrenheit, in just 43 seconds. For the world, a sigh of relief as the reactor's defense systems engaged. An emergency cold shutdown initiated. A radiological disaster averted. But for the Russian military, the news was grim. The entire plant went dark. 500,000 homes and critical military installations plunged into the black. the same darkness Russia had engineered for Ukraine. The initial damage assessment: a staggering $150 million, 1 gigawatt of power, erased from the Russian grid. On the ground, chaos. Russian troops ran in confusion as sirens screamed into the blizzard, the sound echoing off the mangled steel of a collapsing tower. Thousands of miles above, an eye in the sky watched. An American intelligence satellite recorded the event in 14 high-resolution frames. Frame 1, an intact tower. Frame 14, a gaping, steaming wound where its heart used to be. The Russians had a billion-dollar shield. It was meant to protect a multi-billion-dollar asset. Ukraine bypassed it with a $150,000 drone and a devastating lesson in modern warfare. The true impact of this global conflict wasn't measured in twisted steel or the $150 million repair bill. It was measured in strategic paralysis. A paralysis that seized the entire Russian Western Front. The effect was catastrophic. Its primary power source severed. The S-400 air defense shield went blind. For 72 critical hours, its billion-dollar brain was a brick. This wasn't just a tactical problem for the army. It was a wide-open invitation. As Russia scrambled to react, Ukraine seized the initiative in this brutal war. Pressure mounted on 8 separate fronts. The hunter was now the hunted, forced onto defense on a board Ukraine now controlled. The fallout radiated beyond the military. The Smolensk plant was a key artery for Russian power exports. With 1 gigawatt of its output gone, the Kremlin was forced to cut 20% of its electricity supply to its key ally, Belarus. This was more than a broken contract. It was political humiliation, a financial disaster, $50 million a day in lost revenue, a hostile takeover executed with military drones, bleeding Russia of cash, straining a critical alliance. This cascade of military, economic, and political failure landed on a single desk. An emergency Kremlin meeting. A furious Vladimir Putin reportedly demanding an answer to one humiliating question. How did 8 drones and 3 men in a forest do this to us? That question is the core of this war analysis. Russia had a multi-billion-dollar nuclear asset, protected by a billion-dollar air defense system. Ukraine had 8 drones, a handful of partisans, and a deep understanding of their enemy's arrogance. They knew the S-400, for all its power, was a brute force instrument, designed to swat bombers from the sky, not to fight a thinking, decentralized swarm of modern weapons. They understood a system dependent on a centralized grid was fatally vulnerable. Most importantly, they understood Russia's greatest perceived military strength. The brutal, unforgiving Russian winter could be turned against them. This battle wasn't won by the side with the most expensive hardware. It was won by the side clever enough to turn falling snow into an electronic warfare weapon, a victory for ingenuity over brute force. A testament to the new reality of 21st century warfare, where victory belongs not to those with the biggest missiles, but to those with the most disruptive ideas. Like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for the latest military update. In our next deep dive, we expose how partisans use thermal anomalies to blind Russia's most advanced sensors. And that was only the beginning.